No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
And good Monday morning. This is Mike Lodge. I am the business advisor, and I'm glad that you have joined me. I hope all of you had, I'm talking to the women now, all of you had a very, very good Mother's Day. I often wonder about all of you moms out there, because you guys have all done such tremendous jobs in trying to raise your children and to create a good family. So I give you gold stars every single day of your life because you're out there trying to do good. And I really admire that. My mom passed away several years ago. And she was my adoptive mom. So I always give her thanks every Mother's Day for giving me that chance to be a human being. Now, listen, my birth mother was down in Camp Pendleton, San Diego, very close to the Mexican border. At that time of life, she could have gone across the Mexican border and aborted me. But she didn't. She went to my uncle, who was a chaplain at Camp Pendleton, and the soldiers, both of them, said, listen, we've gotten this girl pregnant, and we want to put it up for adoption. And luckily, he knew that my mom was looking for a child because they could not have children. And he called up there and said, listen, I have a little baby boy down here. Do you want to come down and get him? And she jumped into the car. Both my adoptive dad and mom got into the car and drove from Yakima, Washington, all the way down to San Diego and picked me up. And I began my life. My life began after I was born. My uncle created a makeshift bed in a drawer, a dresser drawer, and that was my very first home, in the dresser drawer. And now, look at me, I'm doing this podcast, and I'm still in the drawer. But I thank my mom for being a good mom. She was a good mom. Listen, we have heard a lot of things being beaten around the bush and terminology being thrown about by members of Congress on the Biden business scandal or issue that's come up before the nation. So today I thought I would go through, and because, they're using all these terminologies, right? And it gets very confusing as to, is this true or not true or not? So let's go over some of the terminology that is being bantered about by members of Congress as they review what Bidens are doing. Now, we have to begin with, there's over 20 LLCs. An LLC is a limited liability company, and it can be a partnership type of form, or it can be turned into a business, a corporation, or it can be a sole proprietorship. So in this situation, we need to know on these LLCs, where did the money flow? Who were in charge of these LLCs? Who made the daily decisions? So you have to look at what the LLC was actually doing. And if you listen to Congress, they're saying that there's no definition as to what these LLCs were for. Well, one of the definitions that you have to start with is the incorporation papers, or the putting the company into an LLC format. You have to file paperwork, and then you have to keep a minute book. And in that minute book, it tells the decisions that have been made and voted on and approved throughout the years of operation. Now, if there isn't any, now I'm going to tell you that if you are in a lawsuit and if you are being audited by the IRS, those are the documents that they're going to ask for to see whether or not if you are operating as a legitimate business, if you are in good standing still as a legitimate business. And they're going to want to look at all the transactions, all the invoices. They're going to want to look at your banking statements. They're going to want to look at any contracts that are in place that you're working on to show them that you are a legitimate business. Now, did the 20 plus LLCs that the Bidens had, did they have any documentation? That's the question that I think Congress is trying to ask. And that's, if you're running a business, you have to ask that same question of yourself. Are you operating your business as a legitimate business? Are you keeping records? Are you looking at keeping all the contracts? Are you filing your statement of information with the Secretary of State every single year? And there's a whole bunch of lists that you have to go through. Are you operating as a business? And a business is an organization or an entity that sells goods and services. So you must have some type of documentation. You must have some type of contract. If you're representing companies, you must have a contract in place to show that you are representing that company and what that duties are under that contract is. If you don't have that, then the red flag goes up. Are you operating as a legitimate business? So if you are a LLC, make sure that your corporate records are up to date. That is showing that you've opened up these bank accounts and people voted on it and people were hired, etc., etc. You have to have everything documented. If you don't have it documented, the red flag goes up and say, well, maybe they're not operating on the up and up. Maybe they're not operating as a legitimate business. And let's look at the flow of money. Where is it going to? Who is it going to? And what was the purpose of that flow of money? Those are the questions that have to be asked when they're looking at the legitimacy of a business. Then we talk about money laundering. And it appears that if you see money skipping from company to company to company and other individuals that are not even a part of that company, with this no contracts in place, no assignment of duties to receive that money, then you have an issue where the red flag goes up again on, is this money laundering? So money laundering is essentially it's used for criminal organizations that wish to use illegally obtained money effectively. So during this period of time that they're operating, they're just moving money. They're just moving it to clean it up. Laundry means to clean up the sources of the money. Where did it come from? Trying to hide where it came from. So they're dealing with large amounts of illegal cash, is inefficient, and it's very dangerous. So criminals need a way to deposit money into legitimize it by going into a legitimate financial institution. Yet they can only do so if it appears to come from a legitimate sources. So they create these LLCs and they give them these funny names, but they never tell exactly what the business is doing. What are they doing? So the process of laundering money typically involves 3 steps: placement, layering, and integration. And I'll put a link down below that goes through all those processes of what determines those 3 categories. But in brief, placement injects the dirty money into the legitimate financial system. Layering conceals the source of the money through a series of transactions and bookkeeping tricks. And then the final step is the integration. The now laundered money is withdrawn from the legitimate account to be used for whatever purposes the criminals have in mind for it. So you have to look at the flow of money. And if you see money moving through the system, through various different countries, not countries, well, it could be also countries also, but also companies within those countries, if you see them flowing in and out and going to places and going to individuals. Now, in the Biden's case, it appears that the money is going even all the way down to grandchildren. Now, if it's grandchildren, what was their role in that LLC where they got the money from? And then what were they using that LLC money for? Were they operating a business? Did they have a contract with that business? Did they have any operating statements that support their business? So you see how messy it is. So now we've talked about what the business is supposed to do. And then we've talked about the laundering portion of it. And then the accusation that is now out there is on influence peddling. Now, influence peddling is an illegal activity too. So I'm going to give you a definition of what influence peddling is. It is the practice of using money, wealth, personal undertaking, or gifts to purchase a favorable outcome or decision from an official, government office holder, or public authority. So this money was coming in from foreign locations, China, Ukraine, other countries. But what was it for? What were the assigned duties to obtain that money? What was it for? Are there contracts in place? Now, Hunter Biden was an attorney, or is an attorney, I should say. Was he representing those countries? Now, if he was representing those countries, there's probably another layer of what is called lobbying, where you have to be registered with the federal government as a lobbyist. And if he wasn't doing that, then what was he doing for that money coming in? Certainly he wasn't doing accounting work. I'm not quite sure exactly what he was being done. But if you follow the process of pictures being taken and people showing up places on meetings with the vice president at that time, the red flag goes up. Is this influence peddling that Hunter Biden was into? And if there was influence peddling, and if he was receiving that money from those foreign governments for that specific purpose, to have access to the vice president, or to even have access to the president on certain issues, then that is an illegal activity. So you have all of these terms being tossed around. But I want to go back, because I don't want to talk about the hunters the hunters. I don't want to talk about the Bidens all the time. I want you to understand that as you are operating a business, you have responsibilities. And that clear decision process and managing that business has to have a paper flow. And that paper flow has got to be documented in a very serious manner. You have a responsibility that if you are running a business, that you also have the compliance issues of that business. Compliance is a big part of running any business. You have compliance with the Internal Revenue Service. You have compliance with the local business and taxing authorities. You have compliance with contracts that you have to perform. You have compliance of the yin-yang. That's why they hire companies like me to monitor compliance. But if you are not monitoring what your company is doing and how you're documenting everything, that could raise red flags on how you're operating your business. And you don't ever want that red flag to come up. So this is very important. Monitor how you're running these businesses, how you're running your business, and do it legally. Listen, if you have any business questions, send it to thebusinessadvisor@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to try and answer them. If I can't, I'll find you a source to get you to that answer. If you would like to sit down with me confidentially and have a business coaching or business advisory session with me, you can book me online at my website at www.lodge-co.com. Everybody go and have a great day. All your moms, happy Mother's Day. And I hope that you had a great weekend. Talk with you soon. Bye-bye.